All right, guys, there's a lot of folks asking questions about tumblers, and just go ahead and give you a little introduction here. I've done probably, I know I've done 4 or 5 jobs where it was anywhere from 20 to 30 tumblers, and then there's no telling how many singles I've done and doubles, and just little small batches for people for gifts or special occasions, or just because they wanted something customized. This is not exactly orthodox ways of doing things. I'm going to give you a few tips the way I do it. Like I said, not an expert. This is not the only way. This is my way. It works for me. If you want to, learn how I do it and see the tips and the suggestions that I have for consistently doing a good job on these cups and not spending a fortune on the ones that you mess up, then stick around for a minute and I'm going to go over the process that I use. Okay, first I'm going to go over some of the hardware that I've got here and just make sure everybody understands what I'm working with here. I'm going to use, this is one of my test cups. I'm going to use this guy because I don't want to waste one. And one of the biggest problems that I hear people talking about is, you're using these rings and you're using all these different machines with the old type of rotary there, and because the cup wants to do this. Well, the thing that I use, like I said, this is my shop, and I've got a tractor. This is a socket that's specifically made for taking off the bush hog blades, and it serves no other purpose in the world except for that, until I got my XTool, and I decided that it works great for also helping me keep my tumblers aligned. So I'm gonna go through the hardware setup and how I get everything configured here, and then I'm gonna move over to the computer and I'll go through the steps and the things that I use when I'm doing them over there. But this guy, basically, when you sit this inside the cup, I let the edge of the socket touch the edge of the rotary, and as you can see now, it doesn't move. Now, I have had some cups that want to wobble and stuff in the past, and so I got a little paranoid for that. And this is my stop block. It has magnets on the back of it. I use it for a lot of different stuff. It's got a hole here, and I've got different length pins that I can put in here to hold things up or hang them. If I've got something that I want to hang, I can use it to hold things in the rotary, or with the pin if they're real short. Those wine glasses, I've got a really long one that I use with those little wine tumblers that goes out and puts a little pressure on the back side of it. The purpose of this guy here is basically I sit this behind my tumbler and just barely nudge it up against the back of it. Not enough to hold it, not enough to put any amount of pressure on it, just to keep it, to give a little resistance if it tries to go that way. All that is a block of cedar that I had left over from some of my milling I did. And one day I was trying to figure out how to make this work because I'd done messed up 3 or 4 cups when I first got it. And so I come up with this. It has worked for me consistently, and so therefore I haven't changed it. Some of the cups you'll have an issue with it being level, and I have spacers that go with my, I don't know if you saw it or not, but I've got a jig that's cut out, and there's a recess in this jig. It holds my jig exactly where I want it. I don't have to worry about squaring it with the frame, because I know that when I slide this jig in there, that jig that's laying in there that my rotary sits in, I know that's square because I cut it using light burn, using a piece of my 1/4 inch Luan, and cut those holes exactly the size of the rotary. And then I also added a little space at the front, at the back here, and I've got these little spacers, and this is my 1 inch spacer, a 1/2 inch spacer, and a 0 inch spacer. Well, the 0 inch spacer slides in back here. There's a little void where my spacers go, and so my 0 inch spacer basically slides in between the rotary and my jig, just to make sure when I'm not running spacers that nothing can push it. Typically, I'm going to include a little video from my overhead camera as well, so you can see what's going on in the back here. I'll plug that in once we get everything set up. I'll make that video using my laptop and my light burn camera, and I'll throw that in here as well. But so we won't be using this jig, because with this cup it is close enough to being flat that I'm not concerned. So we're going to just lay this back up here in the XTool box where it goes with my feet, where my feet are stored. And then I will run this up against the back of it, like I said, just touching, not putting any pressure on it, just I want it touching, that's it. Also, I have marks on my bed rail here that I have made so that I know where my starting point is for my rotary. When I take and I move my rotary to this position right here, I know that there is where the rotary is lined up and is in the center of this cup. And I did that by basically, after I got my jig made, I put everything in here and I moved my rotary to where I wanted to be on the cup and made sure I was center of the cup. And then I just took my Sharpie and made me a line right here to use as a timing mark, so I'd know to pull it up to here. And once I get in the center of that line, I'm where I need to be on my cup. Typically what I like to do, especially with these, is I use this line here as a reference for where I want to start my graphic, and I work my way toward the front. And so once the laser is powered up, I will align my laser to this location, wherever I want it to be. I'll make my first burn. When it goes back to the home location, I don't move that. I slide my main bar here back, replace another cup, and then slide that back forward to this exact same timing mark. And that's how you get consistency when you're doing 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 of these things. Each one of them, when you set them side by side, the image is not going to be higher or lower than the other one, because every time this thing goes back home, this is the top left start position that is default in the Laser Box Basic, and I don't move that. I did early on, I tried using the center, but that'll bite you if you ever forget to, if you come out of the graphic and go back and you forget to move that blue dot, that will bite you and you will destroy a cup. That's what happened to a couple of mine. So the thing that I'm going to do now is I've got my file loaded. I'm going to turn the XTool on. It's going to get a little loud. I've got the file loaded, and so what I'm going to do, I know this file because I've used it as many times as I have. So I'm going to set my crosshairs right here on the edge of the cup. And this one's going to be a fire department logo. It's just because it's a red cup, and I've recently done these. The power setting that I'm going to be running on this one is going to be 100% power and 70 millimeters per second at one pass. So just so everybody's clear on what we got going here. You also, when you're doing these tumblers, you want to make sure to rotate your image, which this file I'm downloading from one of my saves, so that's already done. But the rotary will be engaged. Make sure you check that box when you do your get ready to start it. And like I said, I use the default where the blue dot is. I use that one every time because I've had that bite me trying to move that around. Make sure you engage the rotary. I run my framing speed. This is one thing that I found that is bad for you if you're doing tumblers. The slower your framing speed is, the better, because you don't want to go so fast to be throwing everything around. And so I've got my framing speed set at 40, and then my distance down at the bottom is set to 20 millimeters. I do not use the laser spot. I just like the crosshairs. And so we're gonna go ahead and frame this thing up and see how it runs here. Let me get my overhead camera going so that we can see that too. Let me go ahead and start that camera up. And I'm gonna videotape both from the GoPro and from overhead. That way you guys can see a little better in the playback maybe. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and frame that guy out. All right, that was smooth. I do want to move it over a little bit because I don't want that old graphic that I did interfering with what we got going. If anything, I can tell you, you can never frame too much. So I'm gonna frame again. I watch and make sure that I maintain an equal gap where the line meets the silver part there. I also do the same thing on the back side, making sure that I stay even here and I stay even there. And the more you frame, basically, all you're doing is making sure that everything moves smoothly and it's doing what you want it to. I got a little more pressure than I want there, I think. All right, if you notice going slow like that, it's making the framing fairly smooth. So I am going to fire this thing up and let it run. It'll take about 15 minutes, so I'll probably wind up having to pause the camera and start it back once we get it done. But I'm going to video it with the overhead. So I'll check back with you in just a second. All right, guys, the burn is complete. I went and got a bite to eat while this thing ran. So we're gonna get this thing off of there. And just to make sure everybody knows that this is the one I burned, I'm gonna just move my gantry back here a little bit and let you take a look at that guy. Now, as you can see, it's a little gray, and that is absolutely normal. When you burn those things, you're gonna get that little bit of soot. My recommendation is rubbing alcohol and one of these cool little magic erasers, or I think this is actually like the Dollar General brand magic eraser. So it's even cheaper. And all I do is I'll take me a little dab of the rubbing alcohol. So put that on there. And then just wipe her down real good with the magic eraser. You're gonna get all that sooty residue off of it. You may want to make sure before you do this step that you don't have any cuts on your fingers. If you do, it'll remind you if you forget. And then once I get to this point, I'll just use this rag. You just have to take a rag and get the little grimy stuff off of it that come out of the burn there. And then of course, before you use it, I would strongly recommend running it through the sink with some soap and water. But that's the finished image. As you can see, it's clean. Everything looks good. The glisten and the gleam is the same as the top part of the cup. As far as the reflectivity of it, if you look really close, and I don't know how well this thing's going to do, right there in the center, that's some real fine detail that's in this patch for these firefighter guys that I use, and that is the same cup. There's the little mishap that happened early on with this one, but that is my recommendation on how to do these cups. All right, guys, that concludes the video for today. That's how I make my tumblers. And using my method, I could put another tumbler on there and duplicate this result exactly. And I have done so with up to 30 of these things in one sitting. So that's what I use and how I do it. I hope the video, maybe if it helped you out or whatever, you can give me a thumbs up or hit the subscribe button. And if I have any other questions or anything that comes up, I'll try to do a quick video on that and put it out for everybody to watch. I prefer to do that rather than trying to explain the entire process to 100 people as they come into the group and as they get new to the group on Facebook. So share the video if you like it, and give me a little feedback. Thank you. Have a good day.